All right, guys. So this is Kenny here. I'm going to do a quick video on this question here because, when it comes to sales stuff, it's really, really hard for me to just type out an answer. Um, if somebody asks a question on Quora or wherever else, and they're like, hey, how do I come up with a business idea? Like, that's easy, right? I could type that out and just give them an answer. Go to the market, find what the problem is, develop a base of qualified prospects, sell it back to those people, expand out to a tight market, expand it out to a broad market, and then go as far as you can go with it, right? But when it comes to actually selling something, a lot of it has to do with how you say things, right? We call that tonality, right? The pace at which you say it, that's the speed at which you speak, and also the words that you say. So I can't just write it out. I have to actually say it so that you can hear it, okay? So the question is, do you have any advice or stories for a startup trying to promote their first product? I finally had an idea that I seemed unique enough that I was able to produce. I recently released an initial version as an open source and put it on GitHub, then published it to my somewhat limited social networks. It's a CMS. I hope to support it by developing themes and add-ons. Okay, so first of all, I have like no idea what 90% of that means, right? But here's what I do know, and I'm going to give you an extreme example. I always do, so forgive me. The product that you sell does not matter. It's very important that you understand that, okay? The product that you sell is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. You sell houses and heroin the same exact way. It's no different, okay? With that said, though, I don't want you to misunderstand me, okay? Your product has to be really good. The service behind it has to be really good. The pricing has to be right, right? When I say a product doesn't matter, what I mean is every sale is the same. It doesn't matter if you're selling houses, cars, books, shoes, guns, drugs, people. It doesn't matter what it is. The process to get somebody from a cold prospect to a paying client is exactly the same. Okay, you have to understand that. So all the stuff about it's an open source thing and all that does, it's meaningless. It doesn't matter. It could have been a house. It could have been a car. It doesn't make a difference. Okay. The number one issue that you're going to have with this, with that particular question, is the qualified lead issue. And that's an issue that it's the number one reason why businesses fail. The number one reason why businesses fail is not money. It's because they lack people to sell to. They don't have enough people to sell to. I mean, that's it. If they had a full pipeline, they wouldn't have money issues, right? Because at the end of the day, that it is true that it is money, but money is directly tied to the amount of clients that you sell, right? So if you have clients and you have a pipeline that's full of qualified leads, people want to buy from you, then you're never going to run into a money issue, okay? So it all comes back to the ability to turn cold prospects, people who have no idea who you are, never heard of you before, into paying customers, right? That's really what it comes down to. So what is a qualified lead? A qualified lead is someone who has the want, need, or desire for what it is that you're offering, number one. That's where most people make the mistake. Number two, they have the authority to say yes. And number three, they have the ability to pay you. So what most people will do is they will spend a lot of time, if they're prospecting, most people don't even prospect, right? Let's just be honest. You're talking about posting it to a social network. That's nothing. Right? When I say prospecting, I'm talking about cold calls. I'm talking about knocking on people's door. I'm talking about really pushing yourself into the marketplace. And that's what it takes. That is exactly what it takes. If you're in business and you're not making a minimum of 100 cold calls a day to people that have never heard from you before, don't know who you are, then I don't think you're doing enough. I mean, it's just you're not, okay? So when I talk about prospecting, that's what I'm talking about. And what most people do when they prospect, and like I said, most people don't prospect, but the people that do, the biggest mistake that they make is they're talking to people who don't already want, need, or desire what it is that they're offering. And they're trying to convince them that they should have it. That's a huge mistake, right? I only talk to people who already want what I have. If I do that, then my only job is to convince them that I'm the one they should buy it from, right? So let me give you a very good example. I don't do this, but let me just give you an example. Let's say you're selling search engine optimization. And again, I don't sell that, right? So, but every sale is the same. It doesn't matter what the product is. Let's say I'm selling search engine optimization. The first thing I'm going to look for when I'm prospecting is people that already are using some sort of search engine optimization service. Why? Because I know that they understand that they need it, right? Or they want it, or it's something that they have to have. I understand that. If they didn't know they needed it, they wouldn't have it already, right? When I sold stock, we never opened up accounts with people who didn't already invest. We only pitched people who already had money in the market. Why? Because we knew that they were already doing it. They wanted it. They needed it. That's what they did. Okay? If they didn't already have money in the market, they weren't qualified to work with us. It's just that simple. Okay? So most people spend a lot of time, they're like, oh, I'll call locksmiths and sell website design or whatever. But the locksmith doesn't know he needs a new website. You got to educate him on it. And that's a big, big problem. That's why consultative selling doesn't work, because it's all about education, right? Now, I'm not saying education is bad when it comes to a prospect, but if you're spending all of your time telling the prospect why he should have it and you're educating him on the background of what you're doing, that's a waste of time, because there's enough people out there that already know they need it, right? So that's number one. That's the biggest mistake people make when they're prospecting. They have to have the want, need, or desire in order for you to talk to them. If they don't already know what you're selling and that they need it, you're wasting your time. Number two, they have to have the authority to say yes. If you've ever worked as an insurance agent or a mortgage broker or a realtor or anything like that, right? Or you've ever bought any of those things. You bought a house, you bought insurance, you bought a car even, whatever it is. You'll know that when an insurance agent or a realtor books an appointment with somebody, they always say, when is a good time for you and your spouse to sit down for 5 minutes so we can go over this, right? Why do they say you and your spouse? Because they understand authority. They know that in order to get the deal done, they need both people there, right? They're not going to go and pitch the wife and hope the husband comes around. And they're not going to do the same thing with the husband. They're not going to pitch the husband and hope that the wife just comes around. They have to have both people there because they understand authority, right? So if you're on the phone or you're knocking on doors, and let's say you're going to a place and the place, there's a sign on top of it that says Joe and John's Pizza, right? And Joe is sitting right there. And you're like, wow, this is awesome. I have a decision maker. This is the greatest thing ever. And you're pitching the guy. But his partner John is in Vegas. That's not a qualified prospect. He can't say yes to you without his partner there. Right? Now, hypothetically speaking, can he get the partner on a conference call? Yes, all that is possible, right? But in order for that to be a qualified prospect, Joe and John need to be sitting next to each other when you present the offer, okay? So that's number two, authority. They have to have the ability to say yes right now. Number three is they have to have the ability to pay you. Another mistake people make. They pitch broke people all day, right? All day long, they're pitching. I have people that call off Craigslist, right? Clients of mine that I train, they call off Craigslist. And I tell them that's a great way to practice your pitch. Great way to get a lot of pitches off because you're hitting people on a cell phone and they always answer, right? But it's a terrible way to grow a business because you know most of them are broke. If they weren't broke, they wouldn't be on Craigslist, right? They're on there because it doesn't cost them much money or any money in most cases. So you have to make sure that the people you're talking to have the ability to pay you, all right? So the three things again, qualified prospect, want, need, desire. If you're selling to people who you have to educate as to why they need your service or product, you're wasting your time. They should already know they need it. Your job is not to convince them they need it. Your job is to convince them that you're the right person to give it to them. That's it. They have to have the authority to say yes. If they don't have the authority to say yes, you're wasting your time. Okay? An extreme example would be if you're pitching secretaries, you're wasting your time, right? If you're pitching husbands without wives or wives without husbands that are, if they're married, obviously. If you're pitching one spouse without the other, you're wasting your time. If you're pitching one partner without the other, you're wasting your time. If you're pitching broke people, you're wasting your time. Okay? How do you find this stuff out? You become a master at the only thing that really matters in business, which is the ability to take a cold prospect and turn them into a paying client. That's how you find it out, right? Now, if you want to go more in depth on that, the real issue is not cold to customer. The real issue is cold to warm to ready to buy to customer. Right? And the hardest part is cold to warm. Once they're warm, you can bring them down the ladder pretty quickly. But the cold to warm is really hard because the cold people never heard from you before, right? They don't know who the hell you are. But once they're warm, they know you, okay? I'll get into that, how to do that in a second. But the other thing you have to understand as well is when it comes to cold to warm and qualified and unqualified, right? If you have a qualified prospect on the phone, in a meeting, whatever, whether they're cold, warm, ready to buy, whatever, it doesn't matter. If they are a qualified prospect, they meet the definition of a qualified prospect, please understand what I'm saying here, right? Listen, this is very important. You should close every single one of those people. And if you don't close every single one of those people, you screwed it up, right? It's your fault, your problem. Now, are we going to close 100% of the qualified prospects we speak to? No, never happens, right? I get about 30% of the qualified prospects to say yes to me, okay? And I've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, I started when I was 15 years old. I worked for the best sales organization ever created, okay? So I've been doing this forever. I get 30%, which means 70% of the qualified prospects I speak to, I screw it up. That's what it means. All right, now, through follow-up, right, and emails and voicemails and text messages and videos and everything else, we pick more of those people up over time. But on the first call, right, after they become warm, on the first call, once they're qualified, about 30%. And you should be probably in the 10 to 15% range. If you are, you're killing it, okay, especially if you're brand new. Once you get a little bit more skilled up, you should be in the 20 to 25, maybe even 30% range. Okay, so how do you go from cold to warm? Because that's the biggest jump. Once they're warm, you can move them quick. But how do you go from cold to warm? If you learn how to bring a cold prospect and turn them into a warm, qualified lead, all of your money problems disappear right away. Because you could sell stuff, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Money, business is about money. It's about, and nothing else matters. I mean, I know people are going to say, oh, yeah, boy, you got to be passionate and you got to do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life and save the whales or whatever. That's all BS. It's a joke. The only thing that matters in business is money. You are in business for one reason, and that is to produce income and cash flow, right? That's it. Everything else is a byproduct of that. Yes, you should hire people and you should create great products and help the world and change people's lives. All that stuff should be done. But if you're not making money, how do you hire people? If you're not making money, you're not selling anything. If you're not selling anything, who are you serving? Where's your customer? I have people tell me all the time, we're going to focus on customer support. Well, who the hell are you supporting? You're not selling anything, right? You have to focus on the only thing that matters, which is sales and money. Because if you have sales and you have money, all the other problems go away, right? If you don't have sales and you don't have money, problems pile up real quick. So you have to focus on that one thing. And the ability to turn a cold prospect into a hot lead or a warm lead or a ready-to-buy lead, that is where all the money comes from. It's not taking the guy that said, I love what you guys sent me. I love the product. I love the demonstration. How do I put my credit card in? It's not taking that guy and getting him to pay you because an idiot can do that. My 8-year-old daughter can do that, right? The hard part is cold to warm. So how do you do that? The way that you do that is you first start with what we call the base, right? The base is the group of people where it all began. So for this particular question, that would be whatever the hell the GitHub thing is, right? I'm assuming that's like a forum. I honestly, I don't know what it is, but I'm assuming it's like a forum or something where people with software get together and yell at each other or whatever. And they probably talk about how evil people like me are who sell stuff because I don't think any of them can sell anything. But that's just my experience. But anyway, you start with the base of people, all right? The base of people, it could be family, it could be friends. I don't sell to family and friends, but it's usually the people where the project started, right? So I'll give you a very good example. When I started my company in 2007, I was working in the automotive industry. I was selling cars. Who were my first clients? Car dealerships, right? That's where I was. Those are the people who knew who I was. They knew what I could do. They saw what I did, right? After I got I got like 7 or 8 car dealerships, I went to the mortgage industry and started selling those people. Why? Because the job before the car business was the mortgage business, right? After I closed a lot of mortgage people, I went into the financial services business. Why? Because that's where I started. So I took where I was, my base, and I just worked backwards in the places that I've been, right? So that's where you start. You start at your base. Then you start to work out in what's called a tight market, okay? So if you start in your base, and let's say your base is car dealerships, like that was my base when I first started here in New York. So my base was car dealerships. The smart move for me, I did the wrong thing. The smart move for me would have tried to have been expanding out in the car business as much as I can until I went all across the United States. That would have been the smart thing, right? Because you go from a tight market, car dealerships in New York, to a broad market, car dealerships all across the United States. All right, that's a smart way to do it. That's how you turn cold people who don't know you into warm people, because you can go to a cold person and you could say to them, yeah, I work for this guy, that guy, this guy, and this guy, and I increased their sales by 30%, their sales by 15%, their sales by 20%, and now I'm here to do the same thing for you. When can we get started, today or tomorrow, right? You could do that if you're in a tight market. I couldn't do that when I made the transition from automotive to mortgages, because the mortgage people make no connection to the car business, right? Now, if you're somebody who doesn't want to start in the base and you just want to start cold contacting people, which is actually now what I do, okay? I'm 100% cold contact all the time. So if that's the type of person that you want to be, good, right? The way that you do that is you call them and you qualify them. You call them cold and you qualify them, right? This is where I got my start. I did this for 3 years when I was 15 years old. I called people up. I told them that my name and my company name, and I said, I represent a boutique investment firm, and we're going to call you back with one idea and one idea only. Just a couple quick questions to make sure it's a good fit. Question 1, question 2, question 3. Based on what you just told me, this is a perfect fit for you. What I'm going to do is send out some information on myself and my firm and have someone call you back in a week or two. Does that sound fair? Yes, goodbye. That's what I did for 3 years. I said that script over and over and over and over and over again, 500, 600, 700 times a day to get qualified leads. And then somebody else would call them back and close them. When I got my license, I was doing that for myself, and then I would call them back and close them for myself, right? What I do now is absolutely no different. I'll call people up and I'll say, hey, this is Kenny from, XYZ marketing company out in New York. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Great. The reason for the call is whatever the reason is, whatever I'm selling at that time, right? And then I'll say just a couple quick questions to make sure it's a good fit. And I'll ask them 3 questions to qualify them. Do they want it? Do they have the authority to say yes or no? Can they afford it? 3 questions, right? That's not what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it in a more elegant way than that, but those are the answers that I'm looking for. After I get those answers, I'm going to say, based on what you just told me, what we do here seems like a perfect fit for you. And what I'd like to do is set aside 5 minutes of your time so that we can get together and go over the whole thing. Is Tuesday good for you? And I book an appointment. Now, what happens when I book an appointment? They turn from a cold, unqualified prospect to a warm, qualified prospect, right? After I book the appointment with them, I start sending them out emails with proof documents and stuff that we did in the past and testimonials and facts and figures and all this other stuff, and I bombard them with propaganda so that when I walk into the meeting, basically all I have to say is, did you see what I sent you? Yeah, I saw it. Did you like it? Good. When can we start? That's basically what I say when I walk into a meeting, right? Because they turn from a cold prospect into somebody who's warm, they book an appointment, and then ready to buy based on all of the stuff that I sent them, okay? That's how you do it. Once you master that, and it's not that difficult to do, it's like really freaking easy to do. Once you master that one thing, all of your money issues go away because you could sell stuff now. And once you learn how to sell stuff, I mean, life is completely different. I never have to worry about going broke, ever, ever. Now, I've been there, but I haven't been there in 15 years because I don't have to worry about it anymore, because I know that if I ever do, I can walk into a car dealership, a phone room, an insurance place, whatever, and I can start making $4,000 a week like that. No problem. I can take any risk that I want. I can invest all of my money right now in one thing. And if I lose it all, I can make it all back. Why? Because I know how to sell stuff. Stop focusing on the art, the software, right? Stop focusing on the art of the business and start focusing on the money of the business, because the art doesn't matter. Right, so some people out there, believe me, I know. There's a lot of people out there that will tell you, create what you love. I get it, right? There's a lot of people out there that write books about that and blogging about that and everything else. But the bottom line is that listen, I can find 1 million people that did some CMS with a GitHub thing or whatever. There's millions of people out there that do that. If I can't find someone, I can hire someone on Odesk to create the same thing that you just created in like 2 days. And it'll cost me $200, right? Maybe 1,000 at most. I can have someone create it for me. You can create the stuff. That's great, but there's millions of people that can create the stuff. The key is not creating the stuff. The key is selling it. And if you can't sell it, you don't have anything. You don't have a business until you have paying customers. And I don't care how good your product is. I don't care how bad your product is. It doesn't matter. You don't have a business until you have paying customers. That's what you have to focus on. And the key to getting paying customers is the ability to turn cold people into warm, qualified prospects by either reaching out to them and qualifying them or working a base of people that you already know are qualified and then turning them into ready to buy customers, closing them, and then expanding out inside of a tight market from there. All right. I hope you found this valuable. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can let me know. If not, good luck, and I hope it works out for you.